Given how confusing Lost Highway is, I'm just going to jump into the explanation of the film and not give a brief summary. The protagonist of Lost Highway is Fred, a passionate man who believes that his life should be better than it currently is. Early in the film, he meets a mysterious man who, in the reality of the film, represents his jealousy and his anger. He only sees him after his jealousy and anger with his wife, Renee, comes to the surface. He's angry at his wife because of his frustration with his sex life with her and that he's been unable to please her. He also believes that he deserves a better life. The man throughout the film pushes Fred towards his goals and desire. Fred, soon after meeting the man, kills his wife and is convicted and sentenced to death by electric chair. The film wants us to think he's been framed, but in reality, he did in fact kill his wife. While on death row, we see this blue light, which is an indicator that the film is sending us to the fantasy of our protagonist, Fred. Everything we see beyond this moment is Fred imagining his dream life to shield himself from the reality of his impending death. He imagines the life he thinks he deserves, a life as Pete, a young man with a beautiful and young girlfriend who he can sexually satisfy. She is clearly a stand-in for his wife, but this isn't enough for him, so he imagines a different version of his wife, a version who is passionately in love with him. This version is called Alice. Reality seems to be breaking through Fred's fantasy, as we soon find that Alice is more sexually experienced with him. This is one of many tears in his fantasy that start to show the reality of his life. The moment that completely destroys his fantasy life is the moment where he has sex with Alice. While having sex with Alice, Alice stops and says that he'll never have her. This takes him so far out of his fantasy that his alter ego Pete completely shatters and he's back to being Fred. The man then chases him down with the video camera. This scene symbolizes Fred not wanting to confront his reality of being on death row. He wants to imagine his life how he wants it to be and not how it actually is. When looking back at this previous scene, it becomes more clear.
You want a video camera?
No. Fred hates them.
I like to remember things my own way.
What do you mean by that?
How I remembered them, not necessarily the way they happened.
The film ends with Fred driving away from the detectives in his fracturing fantasy. In the real world, at that moment, he is actually getting executed by the electric chair. Do you agree with my explanation of Lost Highway? Comment down below if you do or don't. Also, what are your thoughts on the film itself?